Elliot, Sarah, and David had heard rumors about the ancient tribe that once lived in the Whispering Pines, a dense forest known for its foggy mornings and eerie stillness. The forest was a place of mystery, where the mist hung low and the trees seemed to whisper secrets to those who dared to listen. The trio had always been fascinated by the unknown, and the stories about the Whispering Pines were too intriguing to resist. The stories were old, but persistent, tales of bloodletting, animal sacrifice, and a ritual that could summon spirits from beyond. These rituals were said to be performed by an ancient tribe that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their legends and the eerie remnants of their village. The village, hidden deep within the forest, was a place few dared to venture. The three friends thought it would be fun to camp there for the weekend, even though the locals warned them never to stray too far into the woods. They were thrill seekers, always looking for their next adventure, and the idea of spending a night in the haunted forest was too tempting to pass up. They packed their gear, loaded up their car, and set off for the Whispering Pines. They laughed it off as superstitious nonsense, setting up camp near a small clearing just before sunset. The clearing was surrounded by tall, ancient trees, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the sky. They pitched their tents, gathered firewood, and built a campfire, the flames casting flickering shadows on the trees around them. The first few hours were peaceful, filled with laughter and the smell of roasting marshmallows. They told stories, played games, and enjoyed the simple pleasure of being in nature. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere began to change. The laughter died down, and a sense of unease settled over the camp. As night fell, the forest grew unnaturally quiet. The sounds of the forest faded away, leaving only an eerie silence. The air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to press in on them from all sides. The friends huddled closer together, their earlier bravado replaced by a growing sense of dread. The air became heavy, thick with the scent of damp moss and decay. It was a smell that seemed to seep into their very bones. The ground was soft and spongy underfoot, and the trees loomed overhead like silent sentinels. The friends could feel the weight of the forest pressing down on them. The moon, full and bright, cast long shadows that seemed to move on their own. The silver light filtered through the trees, creating an otherworldly glow. The shadows twisted and writhed, taking on shapes that seemed almost human. The friends watched in silence, their hearts pounding in their chests. It was then that they heard it, a low humming chant coming from deeper in the woods. The sound was faint at first, barely more than a whisper, but it grew louder with each passing moment. It was a haunting, otherworldly sound, unlike anything they had ever heard before. David stood up, his face pale. "What is that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The others looked at him, their faces mirroring his fear. The chant was growing louder, more insistent, and they could feel the vibrations in the air, a tangible presence that seemed to surround them. Elliot tried to brush it off, but the chant grew louder, more insistent. "It's probably just the wind," he said, trying to sound confident, but his voice wavered. The others nodded, but they could see the fear in each other's eyes. It was followed by the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, as though someone, or something, was circling their camp. The sound was slow and measured, each step echoing through the silence of the forest. The friends froze, their eyes wide with fear, as the footsteps grew closer. They grabbed their flashlights, their breaths quick and shallow. The beams of light cut through the darkness, illuminating the trees and casting long, flickering shadows. The friends moved in a tight circle, their backs to each other, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. Suddenly, they saw them, figures standing just beyond the reach of the light, their faces obscured by masks made of bone, their bodies painted in red. The figures stood motionless, their eyes hidden behind the masks, their presence a silent threat. The friends stared in horror, their minds struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. The figures began to move forward, the chanting growing louder. "Run!" Sarah screamed. The friends turned and bolted into the woods, their hearts pounding in their chests. The sound of drums and chanting followed close behind, a relentless pursuit that drove them deeper into the forest. They ran blindly, their breaths coming in ragged gasps, their hearts pounding. The sound of drums and chanting grew louder, a relentless pursuit that drove them deeper into the forest. The friends huddled closer together, their earlier bravado replaced by a growing sense of dread. When they finally reached the edge of the forest, panting and terrified, only Elliot and Sarah emerged. David was gone. The friends collapsed on the ground, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and fear. They looked back at the forest, their minds struggling to comprehend what had just happened. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and follow us for more. The sense of being watched grew stronger, and they could feel eyes on them, unseen but unmistakable. Join us on TikTok and YouTube for more bone-chilling chronicles. If you dare!